Thank you, Chair. Mr Prescott, you've just said that the BBC is not institutionally biased. What is your bias, if you have one?
Well, it's always a tough job, isn't it, spotting your own biases? I mean, you know, when you read about these centrist dads, I think I'm a centrist dad. That would probably cover it. I mean, actually, you know what? To that question, there are a lot of people. I know you folks haven't gone here so far, but there's been a lot of stuff in some of the papers about Robbie Gibb, and the chair was asking, was one personality more dominant than another? You're asking about my preferences. I am no ideological soulmate of Robbie Gibb, for example. I'm a centrist dad.
I'm a centrist dad too, but a company that you work for received over £100,000 from Larry Ellison, a Republican mega donor. You'll be aware that Donald Trump has removed funding from a lot of public service broadcasters. Is it true that you actually want the BBC to be impartial?
Yes.
Based on those affiliations?
It's totally true. Yes, of course it is.
You said there's some real work to be done at the BBC. Along what lines? Do you think any of that work should be done at the boardroom level? I think
it's a job for the executive, overseen by bodies like the board and the Standards Committee. And if I give you an example, it might help explain what I mean. One of my sadnesses was that when this thing did leak into the public domain, that so much focus, I do understand why, but so much of the focus went on to Trump panorama, okay? But for me, the most heartfelt, the thing I felt most passionately about was the BBC put out one day, over 12 hours on all its bulletins, a story saying that ethnic minority people in this country were being charged more for their insurance purely because of their ethnicity. And when David Grossman looked into this, he found the story to be utterly untrue. I mean, so it was a dreadful thing to have put out, particularly given, it's wrong. It must have been deeply upsetting for many people out there, particularly ethnic minority people who heard that story all day long. Anyway, it was untrue. So you just have to ask yourself, okay, how could the BBC get this so wrong? Who had the idea of doing this story? Who conceived of it? Who did the initial research? Who did the initial reporting? Who wrote the script? Which editors cleared it across the whole of the BBC all day? A completely untrue report. There were multiple levels of editorial failure. Now, we never got a good accounting for that at the Standards Committee, and I would have expected, with a better culture when it came to these things, a complete look at every single failure and ideas for correction. I said many times at the committee meetings that things would come up, many of them in my memo, and I said, to me, this makes me worry about recruitment, about training, about professional standards, about the systems, about the processes. The BBC, I know in the chairman's memo, he tries to say, all this stuff is old, we dealt with it all. Well, to me, what I was frequently seeing was that the BBC's idea of dealing with something was to change the editors around, tweak the written guidelines. But there was never, it seemed to me, any willingness, and take the story I've mentioned, to look into exactly what went wrong there and whether there were deep implications. And of course, since the memo came out, you've had people like Mark Irwin, very respected, a former BBC correspondent. He's done a piece on Substack, I don't know if you've read it, it's worth reading, where he seems to sort of, he's not criticising my memo, far from it, but he says he thinks that there are issues like this in the BBC and there are deep cultural forces at play here. So there's a lot for them to look at.
You mentioned the memo a few times. You also told us that you'd sent it to Ofcom, DCMS, and you'd had that meeting with the BBC. 2 weeks later, the Telegraph had that memo, and they said that it was circulating around government departments. Do you have any idea how that memo got to those other departments or the Daily Telegraph?
No, absolutely not. All that I know is what I've stated.
Did you share that memo with anybody else beyond the BBC board?
Absolutely
and those
not.
committees?
Sorry, Ofcom and DCMS, but beyond that, no.
So somewhere there's a leak. Any idea where that might be?
The case. No, I have no idea.